I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting us, and thank you for showing us all around your beautiful home.
Well, thank you so much for coming. We're so happy to have you here.
Welcome.
Thank you. It was so fun to have y'all on the podcast. I think it was almost 2 years now. And I just loved your style because all of your spaces, they have this like sort of Southern formality to them. You know, they're dressy, but there's also an unexpectedness and a sort of a funkiness that I love the combination of those two together. And it's so unique and it really sets your work apart. So I'm so happy to see it in person.
Thank you.
That means so much because we know you see a number of different homes. So we are honored to have you here. I think it's so special that Elizabeth and I have such a great relationship in working with each other. And I think that is one thing that makes us a little bit different is we truly have two different styles coming into one home.
Yes. Yeah. So, okay. This is your home, Janie, and you built it from the ground up. So walk us through that project. I mean, what was here before? What were you looking for? What were sort of the parameters of the build?
I can definitely walk you through that. But first of all, let me just say Elizabeth was here from the ground up in every step of the way. So she is as much a part of this home as anybody, sometimes more than my husband. Just kidding. But I'll just tell a little bit of history. We moved into this home. We brought our babies home for the first time. It was a small rancher in this small neighborhood, quiet street. We love our neighbors. We decided we did not want to move. We loved our location too much. We had a small lot, so we chose Anna Evans as our architect, who we love, to build a custom home. You know, it was important for us that the finishes were all top-notch and we wanted unique trim, and Anna provides all of that. She did such a good job working with the small space that we had to make each room feel unique and really separate, but also an open floor plan in a way.
Yeah, there is, there's definitely like a flow between rooms that makes it feel open, but it's not that traditional open floor plan, I think, that so many people kind of recognize. Was it challenging to work with your business partner, but almost like treat her like a client? Or do y'all have such a great, communication style that it was fun?
We do. It was really fun. It was actually just like any job, you work with generally a spouse, and most of the time working more so with one partner. So with this project, it was fun because I got to spend a lot of time with Janie's husband. And so we all kind of worked together. It was fun because Jemison, her husband, occasionally had a few opinions, but for the most part, he just kind of let us go with it, which was really fun.
We'll have to say he was such a trooper. He only had one major request, and that was that we have a really large fireplace. And when we originally walked in and it was to the studs, he was like, that's too large. So even though this is large, we went down. But he was so sweet and kind of gave us full reins to do whatever we really wanted. He has what we call the record room. And he's like, did you put another flower in there? But one thing that we do love to do is to entertain. And we like having the separation of a dining room, and we like that the kitchen is separate from the living room. We wanted it to be separate, but still it's a small space, so we wanted it to feel open. And Anna did a good job raising all of the archways, raising the ceiling in the dining room and in the living room to really make it feel bigger, and then also provide that openness while allowing each space to feel small.
Even the little touches, like the little bookcase in between the living and dining room, it feels like what you would see in an old house, but it's obviously new. So I love the way that kind of helps it feel bigger. There's more separation between the spaces.
Those are definitely Anna Evans' details that are so amazing that she brings to the table, like Janie was talking about, with the really thick trim and the beautiful archways, and just adding touches and details that make a new home feel old and feel like it's been there and custom.
Let's start in here. I mean, this space, I had seen some photos before and it was fabulous but different. So you redecorated, you changed the layout. It had sort of a sectional before. What made you want to change things up, and what guided your choices in here?
Well, originally what changed it is, while I was saying Jemison did not have many opinions, he did get an idea in his head that he did not like the game table, and he wanted the game table to go upstairs. So I was like, great, I'm going to take this as I'm ready to change out my sofa anyway. We'll get 2 new sofas in here, move the chairs. But as that continued, we started playing a lot more games, and my daughter started playing Mahjong, and we realized we really need the game table in here. But that actually started the conversation of, okay, wait, I think maybe let's change the layout. Why not? Let's get 2 sofas and we can move the chairs. And that's how I got them on board.
So it wasn't a big functional difference other than just kind of wanting to move the game table and having an opportunity to change things up. It wasn't like you were unhappy with.
No, I love the sectional. I think the sectional is so fun. I actually moved the sectional upstairs and can show you how we reworked that. But I do think functionally, again, entertaining. We wanted to have the French doors open, and it made it a little bit more inviting that we could open the French doors with the 2 chairs right there. And then it did provide a little bit more of comfortable seating for everybody.
Yeah, I can see how that flow would make more sense with the French doors. Okay, I love this space because I could have never in a million years put these patterns together. The florals, the big geometric on the floor, and I just love it. So talk me through, I think so many people would be afraid to do a floral on the sofas. Where did the kind of ideas come from, and how do y'all know when 2 patterns are going to go together?
It's nice to have a partner because I do feel like we love pulling in different elements and mixing florals, and we'll say, oh, that one's tighter, that can work with this because it's a larger scale floral, or this one's a silhouetted floral. And so it's fun to kind of work together and kind of say, what about this or what about that? And we bounce a lot of ideas off each other. So I think it makes us better as designers that we can do that. But I think there's no set program to how we plan it all, but it does just kind of organically come together. And I think there are some elements that we look at, like we do love putting a silhouetted floral with a multicolor floral, or a smaller scale floral or geometric with a larger scale floral. And so it's kind of fun to mix those different patterns and like use scale and color, and just having those sort of parameters gives us a little bit of a widened idea of how we want to pull different things together that you might not normally pair.
So did you pick the sofa fabric first and then just try lots of options with it? Like, are you just holding the samples next to one another, or can you picture it in your head?
I think one thing also that is a good and bad when you're doing your own house is that you see so much. You see so many different fabrics and so many different styles. And I think one thing that Elizabeth and I do is when we're doing someone's home, we really start channeling their style and their energy and pouring that into someone's home. So when wanting to redo mine, I really loved this Jean Monroe fabric and kind of used that as an anchor fabric and would throw things off to Elizabeth. We knew we wanted to keep this rug and the geometric rug, and the drapery was going to stay. And then I knew that we wanted to keep the game table that we had designed for Antiques of the Garden a couple years ago with these vintage Z chairs that we found. So those were the elements that were staying in the room. And then this was the anchor fabric that we just sort of came off of. And I would describe it for me, as Elizabeth was saying, there is no formula. There is no, we use this, so we have to use this. And I think that is one thing that is unique about us, and that we really, for me, I really feel the design and really pour into each space, and each client is so different. And so bringing out their personal styles is so important to us. But I love a little unexpected, and I love a little mix and match that you may not normally think, okay, that's going to look good together, but it surprises you.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the dining room, because that is another one where the mix of styles, you've got this very traditional wallpaper, sort of chinoiserie, but then you've got these kind of funky mid-century chairs and the light. So did you go into it knowing, I kind of want to mix things up and play with styles, or were you just falling in love with things and figuring out a way to make them all work together?
Well, I think, again, it's different for a client than for your own home. It really started with, I knew I wanted to do a chinoiserie wallpaper. And one thing that I've become drawn to because of Elizabeth is a geometric pattern. And so when I saw that St. Frank fabric that Elizabeth introduced me to, I was like, I love how this pairs with the chinoiserie. They're two completely different, but they really coincide together. And I love that. And Elizabeth actually found, I think, the dining chairs. We saw them in Palm Beach, and she was like, these are so cool. I think they would be good for your dining room. And so we pulled the trigger. And actually,
it was a set of 9.
Yeah, it was a set of 9. There's one that's off.
So awkward set. We probably wouldn't have gotten a set of 9 for a client, but those are the kind of things that you can do in your own home.
Yeah.
And then kind of make it work. And so she uses 8 around the table and then can pull in the 9th chair when she needs extra seating.
I think one thing about my dining room that's so special is each piece in there. There's not a lot. It's my dining table, my sideboard, the chairs. Everything is so special to me in there. The buffet was actually one that I received as a wedding gift. The silver tea set on there was something that my mom gave me that she had gotten at an antique auction. And then the lights I found from Cherish, they all really work. And actually, the chandelier was another Palm Beach buying trip. We walked into a store and we were like, you've got to use this somewhere.
So I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah. And the racetrack shape is really cool that it actually was not really planned, but it mimics the dining table.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of just perfect.
They're such different styles, but yes, the similar shapes make them perfect together.
They actually said that it was in an old hotel in Palm Beach and it had crystals hanging down from it at one time, but it was a steal. She was going out of business and she needed to get rid of it, but it ended up working so well.
Okay, it's such a pretty space, and I just love how it came together. What about in the kitchen? Because you've got such an unusual kitchen layout, but it is so functional, and just being in there, it's so comfortable too and sunny. So tell us about the kitchen and how that, I guess, what would you even call the island? Like the C shape or the cutout? How did that come about?
That was all Anna.
Well, you knew you wanted a banquette in there.
Yes, always knew I wanted a banquette.
That was kind of the start, I think, was Janie had inspiration and we love a banquette and we love like a nook and something that kind of feels comfortable. And I think bringing that into the kitchen was something that Anna got from Janie's inspiration. And then Anna beautifully made it all come together. And I love how she decided to do that C shape for the banquette so that it would fit right into the island and you could put a round table in front of it. And it's so inviting. And she did such a good job with that layout design.
You know, I think often like islands get so big and then you have that sort of awkward in the middle, like no man's land where you can't really reach it, but you have to put something there. So the banquette is kind of a perfect solution for that because you've got the space on the sides, but then you don't have that sort of empty space in the middle. It's kind of genius.
I would agree. And I feel like the kitchen is at the center at our house. It's kind of the heart and soul. It's where everyone comes down in the morning, where we all meet, where we talk. I love that it's open and has a formal feel, but it's really relaxed. It gets great light. One interesting thing about the kitchen is it does not have any upper shelves. And so they're all lower except for 2 tall shelving units. But I think that is appeasing to the eye as well because it's got a lot of windows and, again, a lot of natural light that it lets in.
I know you've got sort of a great little butler's pantry. So you've sort of figured out the storage elsewhere to give yourself that beautiful natural light.
Yes, she did a great job. That was one thing that was really important was storage and making sure everything had a place. So she did a great job. In the pantry, we have so much space. And then in the tall cabinets, we have a lot of space also.
Okay, tell me about the wallpaper in the kitchen because, again, I think that is something that most people would not even think to do in a kitchen. But it is so pretty, but it's sort of a open weave and that it's very subtle.
It is very subtle. And I think that was a fun addition to the kitchen. Janie added the wallpaper, and we always like to bring wallpaper up onto the ceiling when we can and when it works. And in this space, it really brought such a nice element of making that room feel like a garden. So when you bring that trellis pattern all the way up through the ceiling and down the walls, and then she had that beautiful floral on the windows that just makes it feel like a garden.
As I say, this is kind of our epicenter. I didn't want it to feel too busy or too cluttered or too overwhelming when we come in the morning. I wanted something that was subtle, that provided that extra layer, but that wasn't too overwhelming.
What is it about putting it on the ceiling that you find so effective?
I think adding wallpaper to the ceiling really envelops a room and it makes it feel more intimate and can really provide that last element to a room that you kind of don't know you need it until you do it. And then it really makes it a big difference to add wallpaper to the ceiling if you can.
That does make a lot of sense in the kitchen because often kitchens can be so cold. There's cabinets, there's stainless appliances, there's marble, so that I guess that pattern really does help to sort of soften all of those harder sort of elements. Yeah. I wouldn't have thought to do that, but I love it.
So one thing about my home is that I do not have any crown molding, and Anna was very intentional about that. I have very large shoe molding, but no crown molding, which I think gives it more of a modern feel. I love a historic home. I love the thick trim on all of the archways that she's done, but I do love having the clean lines on the top. And I think that also, because there is no crown molding, I think it's nice to have that layer on the ceiling being wallpapered. So you'll notice in my dining room, I have the ceiling lacquered. And then in my daughter and my son's room, I've both done ceiling wallpaper.
I didn't even necessarily notice that there wasn't crown, but I love how clean it feels. And it's such a great foil for all of the patterns and those more traditional elements you've added. It really balances one another.
I do feel like it's such an art, and it is a balance of not feeling too overwhelmed, but also that each pattern plays off of each other. And I think that's a place where I'm so thankful to have Elizabeth. And I feel like we do this a lot with our clients, but then with our own homes. Even with our styles, when we dress, is this too much? But where to push yourselves and where to pull back. And I think that is one thing that makes us unique.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, y'all tell me about the kitchen island lights, because I remember from the podcast, it was a funny story, and I wanted you to share it.
It is a good story. I feel like I am the pull the trigger kind of girl in our relationship, and Elizabeth is the slow down, let's look at the details, thankfully. But I pulled the trigger on this one without having her look at the details.
So Janie got these beautiful Christopher Spitzmiller light fixtures that Visual Comfort had for a limited time, and they are gorgeous, and they really make the space. And it ended up all working out for the best. But at the time, I said, Janie, you need to make sure you've measured the island and checked everything out. And she said, it's okay, I ordered the small ones. She actually had ordered the larger size, and they turned out to be really the statement piece of that kitchen. And they really, really bring it all together and add such a great element with the dark green, and it's just beautiful. But at the time, I wasn't sure if she had made a huge mistake. But when we work together, Janie is so good at getting things done and helping me to make decisions and pull the trigger. And I'm kind of bogged in the details a lot. And so I also can slow us down, like Janie said, and help us to make sure we get all the details right before we move forward with something, especially for a client. But with this one, it was Janie's house, and she was just eager to get those ordered, and they ended up it was a beautiful mistake.
I take it you held them up, and there was a little bit of panic, but then you got them in here and it worked out. So yeah.
I really do love these lights. They're so unique, and I can't imagine not having these statement pieces in my home. Visual Comfort is no longer making them. So I feel honored that I have this limited edition in my home.
Yeah. Well, no, and I love the color in there too. Can we talk about some of the bedrooms? We haven't gotten there yet. Let's start maybe with the primary bedroom on the main floor. Tell me kind of how that came about and what sort of guided the choices in there.
I think one thing that was important to us is to keep the bedrooms small. All of our bedrooms are small. We have a limited amount of space that we were working with, and we knew we didn't need large bedrooms for ourselves or for the kids. So that was really kind of where we started. We wanted the primary bedroom on the first floor. And one thing that was important to me is I wanted my closet, and I wanted my husband to have his closet, and then wanted a bathroom with a lot of light. But one thing that I think is unique about the bedroom is while it is small, it feels so special and so curated with different patterns and soft colors, and like a boutique hotel I would want to wake up in.
Mm-hmm. It's very cozy, but also feminine, which I think you don't often put those two adjectives together. But yeah, it's It's gorgeous. And I love that bathroom. I mean, what a dream.
The bathroom is really fun. I do love how we always love Sister Parish. And I think that was kind of where we started with wanting to do the Sister Parish wallpaper on the walls and on the ceiling. And then added a Schumacher floral drapery with a fun cornice that we designed.
I'm thinking back to talking about all of the bedrooms are small. And I'm curious if there any storage concerns you had, or like what kind of tricks did you use to make it to where the bedroom, while small, had everything you needed?
Well, I think one thing is this is almost like a cottage house. And so there's different angles on the ceilings and you'll see different slopes in the kids' bedrooms. And we just kind of went with that. And then we're able to plug in a large laundry room on the second floor. And then, well, it does have the slope ceiling. You know, it's fine. We work around that. And then also in the kids' bedroom, they have great closet space. And so the bedrooms don't need to be big.
So it's just having those great closet moments that make it to where you've got everything you need and you don't have to have a big dresser and all that stuff.
I think so. And Janie's very organized. I also love that she wanted small bedrooms in this home because it is a cottage home and it doesn't need to feel grand when you walk into the primary bedroom. But what it does feel, which is so special, is it feels intimate and it feels like a warm hug because she does have, again, in that space, like we discussed before, the wallpaper on the ceiling. And it does just make it feel so complete and so intimate, and the size feels so intentional. So I think bringing those elements in all the bedrooms where she has wallpapered the ceilings, and like she was talking about with the children's bedrooms, with the sloped angles from the roof line, it really gives it that cottage feel that feels so special, and it feels so intentional that all these spaces have those smaller, intimate elements.
I like how they have like similarities between them all too. There's something about it that just makes it feel it just works, I think. I would never think to maybe have a thread or like the wallpaper or those great big pillows, which we've got to talk about, in every room. But there's something about that. You know, you've got like the grown-up version, you've got the girl version, you've got the boy version, and it makes it feel so, I don't know, tidy or something. It's like they're all meant to be together.
It does. And I do think that is important, that while each space needs to feel like a jewel box or to feel unique, you want the whole home to flow. Yeah. And I think that's really important. I don't think you want to walk into transition from one room to another thinking, this should not be here. Mm-hmm. We need to carry something in throughout. And I think that is also so helpful to have a partner when designing a home, whether it's our personal homes or a client's home. I think making sure that there's consistency and that there is something grounding in each space is really important. Mm-hmm. And I do think also that's where the layers come in and where the different antique pieces. I mean, even in each space, we love having something that's old and something that's new, and we're constantly layering in new elements. Mm-hmm. And I think that is what helps it feel special, but then also makes it feel grounding and consistent and calming.
Yeah. Okay, explain to me these pillows, because I've never seen anything like them, and I think they're so cool and so smart. So tell us about them.
I think that was Elizabeth's idea.
We did it for a client.
Yeah.
So we had done it for a client, and it was actually a really interesting project. We had turned like a closet into a bedroom just to add extra space in their home, and had a built-in bed in this all wood paneled room. And instead of a headboard, we just created this giant bolster, and it just kind of was cool, and it worked, and it was fun. And it also added like an element of something really unique and a play on scale. And so we just decided to do it again in Janie's house.
Yeah. I think it is genius in a kid's room because, for example, in my daughter's room, I have like all these shams and all these pillows, which when the bed is made, looks so beautiful, like in my bedroom, except that her bed is never made. And so instead, you've got one really big pillow, which feels manageable to put on the bed. But when it's off the bed, it's only one pillow that's on the floor. So that is so much more efficient, I think. You get all of the like statement of a bunch of shams, but not all of the like clutter.
It's definitely the unexpected. And I do feel like people walk into the bedrooms and say, wow, that's a big pillow. But it really does. It works. And it's such a standout piece. And it's fun to do it in a different pattern with a fun trim. And it's great for the kids to lean against. It's almost like a husband pillow, but without the actual shape. And they look really pretty too.
Let's talk about the playroom a little bit, because you mentioned before that you moved your sectional, which was in here, up there. So kind of talk us through how that space changed and, what's going on up there now.
Well, I feel like every space kind of transformed as my kids have gotten older, but we've kept some elements the same. We started off originally with these small game chairs that we found at an antique market in Atlanta and had those recovered. And then we moved the sectional that was down here, the large yellow sectional, into the playroom and recovered that. We knew that the kids would want something that was soft, but then also we wanted something that was floral and that would play off the animal print on the rug. So we kept the exterior a floral fabric and then had a solid perennial fabric that we put on there. But I think one thing that really makes the room so special is the dining table that we got from Ballard Design. And it is so nice. It can extend longer, and we love playing games up there. The kids use it for arts and crafts. It's been such a great area for them to do puzzles. We recently got a 3D printer. They have just loved having that area up there.
Yeah, it's homework space or arts and crafts. Like, I'm sure it just gets, that's such a nice spot, I think, for kids, especially as they're getting older, because they need their own spaces. So you mentioned that it's a perennial fabric. I love how you've combined sort of the solid on the seats with the floral in the back. I love that it was sort of touching on what's down here. But did you just want the practicality of the solid, or what was kind of the reasoning behind the solid cushions?
Well, I think we always like to do something that's unexpected.
Yeah, it's a fun pattern play, but it's also very practical and functional at the same time. So it's fun to mix the solid and the pattern and just have that extra element of something else going on. But again, it's nice to have some practicality, especially in a playroom.
I'm a green girl. I'm always drawn to green. And so I had fallen in love with that Sister Parish fabric and realistically knew that my kids would destroy it if it was all over the sofa. And I do think the perennial provides, it's a velvet perennial. So it's very comfortable, it's very durable, and then you have the beautiful fabric on the outside.
Yeah, you kind of get the best of both worlds, I guess.
You do. And then the drapery, we actually just recently got that in. I guess Schumacher came by and they were doing a presentation, and Elizabeth was like, this would play so well off of the green in there. And then also with the animal print rug, you had little black that was in it. They all just kind of fell into place. So again, I think that's balancing the mix of color and pattern and not being too overwhelming, but being subtle in the comparisons and differences.
Okay, what about outside? We haven't talked about your beautiful backyard.
Oh, well, thank you. It's not looking its best right now. It is dead of winter and everything is dead, but it is such a fun space. And again, tiny backyard. And we just recently had it done, and they had recommended bluestoning, which in an ideal world for entertaining is so fun, but we've got 2 young kids and grass was just not growing back there. We have a trampoline, so we decided to do the turf, which has been amazing. And then we really just wanted everything to feel really full and lush and alive around it. We've got this great back patio that we just recently added furniture and these beautiful chaise lounges from Ballard Design, which I'm loving. I can't wait for summertime to just sit out there. But we really just love to open the French doors and have our coffee out there sometimes in the morning when it's warm. And it's just a great little spot that provides a little bit of privacy with our neighbors who are close by.
I love to imagine y'all having parties and just like being able to use that as sort of as an extension and like letting everything flow outside. It's very charming.
It really is. And that was one thing when sitting down with Anna Evans, the architect for the home, I wanted to have French doors on the front of my home open up from the dining room so that when entertaining, we could open the French doors, we could move out. My mom had that at her house, and I loved being able to kind of start with cocktails and then come into the dining room. And so it's mimicked in the dining room and then also in the living room. And we did have a really fun 40th birthday party here. And we actually tinted the backyard, which was so fun, and had all the French doors open and the bar. We have one bar, but then also set up a bar outside. And it was so fun. And I do think that the flow works well in this home, which again, it's not a large home, but I think being able to move everything outside and then go inside is important as well.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask where the idea for the French doors on the front came from, but I love that it was what your mom had in her own. That's very cool. It's such a unique detail. It really sets your house apart, even on the street.
Oh, thank you.
It's been such a joy to get a tour, so thank you. Thank you for having us.
We've loved having you here. It's been great to have you here in Birmingham.
Well, next we'll have to go to your house, Elizabeth, if you'll have us.
Oh, that would be wonderful. I would love it.
Yes, you would love her house. It's also full of
sure.
color and pattern play, and it's amazing.
Perfect. Thank you. For more house tours like this one, be sure to subscribe to Ballard Design's YouTube channel and follow us on social media.